but in the sense that you like protect a partner, not like safety in the world. And I think that's a dynamic that is really difficult for a lot of men because men were not raised to be interesting. Like you just had to show up and have money and that was like enough, or show up and be tall or like be from.
It's not easy to get money. It's a reason why it's only 1% of the world that's like the richest people. If it was that easy, everybody would be fucking rich. So the whole you just gotta have money thing is crazy because people be saying that shit like that shit really do grow off trees. Like that shit just pop out your ass. It take a lot of hard work and skill and dedication to get money in almost whatever you do. Some industries, we ain't gonna get into that. It's easy, but it take a lot of hard work and dedication for 99% of the people that have real money to get that money. So don't just say that shit like it's just like it just come like that.
Family, and that's just not the case anymore. The other part of it is, I think the propaganda that those men that you're talking about are being fed is that women like me are the reason that they are not happy, which is not true in totality, unless I'm mean to you, of course. I know I just threw a lot at you.
No, I can download that. I don't know if that's what the average man thinks whatsoever. And I think it was an oversimplification of men's existence, right? I think that happens a lot because we polarize things. Nothing is ever simple. Everything is always complex.
There's nuance.
But we never want to think about the complexities, right? This was men's mistake when it comes to women, right? We didn't think about the complexities. We didn't think about her period and menstrual cycles, right? And not having access to pads or days off, right? Things of that nature. We just thought about our experience and what we want from them or what we don't want from them, right? And me as a black man in America, I don't think we've still gotten a generation of black men who have autonomy. Say what you want to do what you want to do, right? Move how you want to move. I was talking to a young lady who works at a prominent black media space. And she was explaining, she said, Keys, I'll be trying to advocate for you to get your award, to get you honored in certain spaces, but they don't think you're safe enough. And I'm like, why not though? Now, she was telling me that, of course, now they're even more afraid because of Donald Trump. They don't even want to use the word black or diversity, right? So they're trying to figure out, what can we do while continuing to get in white ad dollars, right? So they're gatekeeping, right? So that to me, it's not surprising. I already knew that. She was only confirming something that I knew. But it's like, as a man, there are limitations to what society will accept from you. You understand me? Especially the version of man that you want to be, right? I think the version of man that men ultimately want to be and how we show up, I think this generation minimizes himself consistently, right? As a black man specifically, we've never gotten to the point where the black man is completely free. We're killed for our expression. You know what I mean? We're killed still for being black as we walk down the street, regardless of sexual orientation, class, level, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's one of those things to where when we hear how other people express their ideas upon us, it makes us feel as y'all don't understand the complexity of what we deal with consistently, right? And while at the same time, we're lobbying for empathy towards everybody else, whether you're gay, whether you're a woman or whatever it is, we're like, I don't think you're taking the same time to get agency of thought to what we go through, right? So then it becomes this battle of, if you don't care about me, why should I care about you, right? And then this.
Yeah, and then you just got everybody going back and forth at that point. Like he said, it becomes a battle of like, okay, well, shit, we do all this shit and we get shitted on. So if y'all don't give a fuck about me, I don't give a fuck about you. And it's just a constant war and a constant back and forth battle. And that don't solve nothing.
Becomes divisive because we're talking rather to each other. And then we talk to the women we like, or we talk to the men we like. But what about the average man? He has feelings, ideas. He grew up a certain way. He probably is still trying to figure out whether he's a tough man, a real man, a high level man, a high value man. He don't know. There's all of these expectations that society is saying that a man is not living up to. Mm-hmm. But what about the ones that he is living up to? Because our parents still went with the average man, right? He didn't have to have all of these great things. He might have been a plumber, right? And he had a nice business and he can take care of the average woman.
Exactly. And that's the problem nowadays. You got a lot of women who feel like the average man is no longer enough for them. You know what I'm saying? And that's the real issue that we facing right now. And that's why we got less families, you know, less happy families. All the women chasing the same 10%, 15, 20% of men. But it's like back in the day, you know what I'm saying? Granddaddy, like he said, was a plumber. My granddaddy was a truck driver. He drove semi trucks, made good ass money. You know what I'm saying? You know, we stayed in the hood, but he made good money. And my grandma loved him to death. He was a real man, provided for the family. We ain't need for nothing. You know what I'm saying? Just an all around real man. And that was enough back then. You know, the women still respected their husbands. You know, they was very grateful. And my grandma was happy, man. My great grandma was happy. You know what I'm saying? That was the dynamic back then. So it's like now, it's just a lot of unrealistic expectations. You know what I'm saying? Which ultimately doesn't help the women. It really hurts y'all because now y'all sitting around here lonely, getting fucked over by the same man that you chasing, but you giving him 100 options when you got, you know what I'm saying, Johnny right here, you got Chris right here, all good dudes. But if they ain't making 100K or 200K or more, or they don't fit the Instagram highlight standards that y'all like, or they ain't traveling enough for y'all don't want to give a man a chance. And that's creating a lot of single people that don't even have a chance to create the home.
Is doing the average things as well. And so for individuals such as yourself who are more anomalies, right? You exist in a certain bracket, a certain class, you travel a certain way. So you really don't speak for the average woman, but the average woman wants you to speak for her. They want to aspire to have those same wants, desires, privileges, right? But they don't, right? The average woman, black woman specifically, is in debt. You know what I mean? With even more debt than the average black man, right? Between the years of 1976 and 2011, there was an incline in black men going to college. It fell off during the Obama administration. Why? Because net income didn't rise because you got out of college with a degree but no opportunities, right? So you increased in debt and it decreased your belief, and it started to create this nihilistic thinking about your world. Like, I'm living and existing in somebody else's world, and even when I do what they tell me to do, I still don't get the privilege. And then upon that, you have all of these shifts happening between white supremacy and George Floyd and Mike Brown. And now the world acts like they care about black men when we get killed, but there's still really never been any change for men, black men specifically, right? And then that became more of a societal-wide idea of men. So that disconnection actually made them easier to psyop. So now somebody say, okay, well, you're not being taken care of over there, and you keep voting this way, or you keep going this way. How about you come with me? You understand me? Because we got the same enemy. So now you're going to see political, ideological shifts. People speaking towards the issues that men go through, right? While another side is saying, ignore your issues, fight for these. But these people are going through a cognitive decline. Black men, suicide rate consistently increases. We're not a suicidal type of people. Depression rates consistently increase. Anxiety. I hear black men telling me, I ain't never had anxiety before. It feels foreign to them, but
That's definitely true for me. Growing up my life, I always heard people talk about anxiety, but I had never experienced it until I would say 3-4 years ago. And the shit was scary as hell because, like I said, I never had a case of anxiety. I didn't know what it felt like. I didn't know how bad it felt, mentally, how scary that shit was. I used to see people talk about it all the time. You'll see commercials or you'll see, segments on movies about it. But to feel that shit personally, thankfully, I don't really have those problems no more. It came and it went. But experiencing that shit was scary because I had never experienced it before. So that does happen to a lot of black men. That's true. Not all, but man, that shit get real.
There's an anxiety for the first time, and he's a very resilient man. I think more men, we tend not to communicate, not because a lot of times we don't know how, we just don't think people care when we do, right? So instead of listened to, we're challenged, right? And so I think that makes a lot of people say, you know what, I'm going to just do what I want to do. And now we exist in a time where men have more desires than ever as well, because you have more options. But more options is its own kind of slavery, because when you have too many choices, you can't make a good decision. And the more desires there are, the more discipline you need, right?
Because a lot of people think just because you have more options means you always have better options. When in fact, that couldn't be the furthest from the truth. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you have the best option already. Sometimes you do. And people blow that and fumble it and fuck it up. But they don't like to admit it. So to cope, they just tell themselves, you know what? It's more people. It's plenty of fish in the sea. But them other fish might not be worth a damn. And the other good fish in the sea usually are taken already. You know what I'm saying? So they're not even in the pool of dating. So I think that's what a lot of people definitely fuck up is it's just the abundance now with social media for both sides, men and women. But if you smart, you understand that if you run into somebody who's actually like a good person, they good for you, hold on to that person because it's not what you think it is. Just because you have options don't mean they good options.
But you need more discipline in a time where it's trying to consistently sell you overstimulation. So the entire environment is not set up for men or women to connect with each other, empathize, understand. Again, it's the reason I'd rather have us talking over coffee than liquor. You understand me? Because we might actually get to a place of understanding.
Do you think that people are too far gone though? Because I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, sure, you and I are outliers and we shouldn't in some ways, I shouldn't be speaking for people who have a different experience than me, but I say all the time, like I'm an outlier for a bunch of different reasons, not just because of my job. And I don't think people are like, oh, like who are you giving advice to? Like, it's not advice. Unless I explicitly say I'm giving you advice, I'm actually not. Because I don't think it's fair to skew things in that way. And in a lot of what I think is happening with men online is this idea that like part of it is the idea that like women and modern women and feminism is keeping them from the women that they deserve to be with. It's like the Onlyfans, influence of like, okay, I can now.
You think you deserve to be with Onlyfans? You already messed up.
Well, yeah, but this is. I mean, women are not funding OnlyFans like men are. So there's
a two-way business.
Sure, but I am not subscribing to anyone's OnlyFans.
Yeah, neither am I.
Okay, you are not either. But we know the statistics of OnlyFans is millions of men. Like the reason that.
I mean, of course, all sex work is funded by men, but that's not the point. The point is, back in the day, granted, they literally didn't have the option to do that. They didn't have the internet yet, but our granddaddies and fathers didn't have to deal with an epidemic of women creating OnlyFans and selling their ass and pussy hole pictures and booty hole pictures, butt ass naked on the internet, for money. So it's a different time because a lot of those women are beautiful women, right? If you take away all the degeneracy, all the whole shit, and they live a moral life and they treat themselves with respect, you have hundreds of thousands of potential wives. So with the internet now and the way things are going in today's time in 2025, in this new era of women, it does really, 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 really shrink the dating pool for men to take somebody serious. So what are men gonna do? They gonna adapt. All right, y'all want to be hoes? I guess we just gonna have fun and everybody's just gonna vibe and fuck the hoes. Because that's how a vast majority of the women nowadays are carrying themselves and acting, right? So men, we just adjust. If y'all all got together tomorrow and said, we ain't doing no more whole shit, we gonna be modest, we ain't fucking nobody unless they marry us, guess what? The marriage rates, it'll shoot up to 90+%. Because men are gonna adapt to whatever the women require. So if y'all not requiring much, y'all putting y'allselves out there for $5.99 on the internet, men gonna follow suit, which in return doesn't really help either side if you're talking about creating families and relationships, because now we ain't finna settle down with the girl that's spreading her asshole. She might be beautiful. We might really fuck with her. The minute you got an OF, fuck, I really like this one. That's how you feel.
OnlyFans women are on OnlyFans is because men are paying.
Yeah, millions of like lonely men and who have fetishes and all these other weird things. And There's an industry for everything.
Sure, and I'm actually like I'm not a judger of the sex industry at all. It's always existed, so it's not. It's just evolved.
Are you a champion for it?
I think you should have autonomy over your body. I think if you want to sell your body, you should be able to do that in a consensual space.
But it's not about if you should be able to sell it or not. Yeah, that's true. You know, you're your own person, you're your own human. He's more so asking, are you championing it as in a sense of, do you support it from a moral aspect? That's what he's asking you. And to which my answer would be, nah, I don't. Because like I say, it created a lot of problems. It created a lot of women that's in that industry be fucked up mentally. So you creating less families. You creating more women that have mental problems and just unstable. It's a lot of negatives. It ain't too many positives really that you could name to me that would make the sex liberation of women that's just really talking about just doing whole shit make sense to me as far as the community and the family structure.
And I also think that for many parts of history, it was a very, I don't want to say essential part, but like it's prostitution and the exchange of like sex and money has existed since humans have existed. It's like one of the oldest occupations. So I think it's a very...
That's true, but it wasn't as big as it is now. Like, it was very few prostitutes compared to modest women. Very few whores compared to virgins. Now it's like the complete opposite. Like they just switched. Very few virgins compared to whores. Very few modest women compared to hoes.
Complex conversation. And I actually believe that OnlyFans has created a space for a lot of women to become financially independent, and they aren't physically in unsafe scenarios where in the past they would have been if they were in that business.
Yeah, I think it goes more into a mentally unsafe because a lot of people stop liking themselves.
Sure. And that's like a whole, but that's a whole other thing.
It's holistic. It's all connected, right? I think the man who's lonely, trying to find himself and, looking at OnlyFans, trying to connect and get some stimulation, right? The girl who's disconnected from the world, right? Willing to disconnect from.
And technically, you're not financially independent from men, because if you got like an OnlyFans and you do any sex work, you're getting funded. Your whole lifestyle and your whole survival is based upon men spending their money.
Moment of selling her body, they're essentially kind of going through the same thing, right? And at the end of the day, men and women are the only beings that exist on the planet Earth. It's just us. Yeah, I mean, I know people love their animals and stuff, but it's just us, just men and women. I think when you get to a simple thing, we have to get along. There's, as beyond our politics, our ideologies, philosophies, etc. It's just us as human beings figuring out.
So how do we fix
how the hell to get along?
Because we're talking around whatever the issue is, and it's a very complex thing. No. But the reason I bring up that OnlyFans thing is like, are we too far gone? Because
nah, that just represented a certain moral decline in society that happened on purpose, right? You disappear values, and people do whatever comes to mind, right?
So what's your fix?
That's the idea.
Yeah, we're not too far gone, but goddamn, it's getting close, man. I'm starting to see a lot of people on both sides, like women and men, saying, you know what, fuck it, I'll just be single. On both sides. So I ain't saying it's just the men, I ain't saying it's just the women. I'm starting to see a lot of people that just really giving up on this love shit, man, just because it's just too much going on, the abundance, and everybody thinking they can replace people, when in fact, you might not be able to replace some people. And you got to eat that and live with that for the rest of your life. It's not, but it can be, it's still some good people out here. You still can find true love, but it is it's extremely hard in this climate versus back in the day.
Satanism is do as thou will, not God's will, right? The fix, number one, I would start with media. You know what I mean? Media has such a powerful ability to storytell and narrate what people believe, right? They say you got to get it to a point of like 68% of awareness of a problem before you start making a shift. Once you do that, you can kind of lobby for things to happen, et cetera. And so, number one, again, the reason we do like even the tour spaces that we curated so it creates connection. I was talking to a lady at Source, and she was asking me the exact same questions. And I'm like, look around. You're talking to me about gender wars, right? That's an online phenomenon that happens more. But offline, it was all these black men talking to black women, having amazing conversations and enjoying each other. Most likely, especially because online is so toxic and they're always going at each other. So it feels good to just connect to another human being, right? And we need to create a culture that is specifically about connection, right? Connection and conversation, but also curation, right, of better ideas. But it's hard to do that because most of the media companies sell out. They sell out to advertisers who want you to have a certain demographic that they can sell loneliness to. Through liquor, through lottery, through, gambling, or through marijuana.
Yeah, these companies, man, they're paying their bills off of our misery. They're paying our bills off of the broken families and homes. Like, y'all got to pay attention to the deeper root of this shit.
All these things that not really creating connection, but allowing you to put a Band-Aid on the fact that you don't have any. You know what I mean? So I believe it's a cultural shift, which is what we focus on in the first place, right? Then it's a implementation of values. What do you believe in? What do I believe in? Do we even know, right? When I was in Japan, the one thing I like about that is, there's an overall theme of Bushido, which is like the warrior's code, right? Which come from like shoguns and samurais and wisdom, right? That is embedded in the fabric of that culture. If you try to get everybody, you go lose, right? But can you create a specific culture of people who have the same values? One of the most nostalgic points in time, where I look at it like a renaissance instead of a revolution, there was points in time we did get along. I think we color history as super gray, you understand me? But there was time where black men and women were really enjoying each other's company, right? We're building, was fighting the right enemy together. And the enemy wasn't each other. Right. And the problem is we allowed the enemy.
That's definitely true, man. We definitely got to get back to that.
Make us each other's enemy. And that only serves them. Doesn't serve women. It doesn't serve men. Because women's quality of life has not increased. Men's quality of life has not increased. The elite's quality of life has increased. Right. Because now we need more makeup. We need more liquor. We need more trips. We need more girls' trips. We need more purses. You need more everything to make up for the lack of what you have inside or the connections that you have socially, right? What cognitive behavioral therapy replaced community, right? So you will go to grandma or sister or friends and have conversation that remind you who you are. They remind you of your power. Now everybody's looking for themselves being lost. I don't believe in finding yourself. I believe reminding yourself, right? And our culture needs a reminder of who we are, but we tell stories of the past as if it was all bad. You go into history and you highlight the cultural memories, right? Because if we talking about culture, my definition of culture is consciousness and motion, and there is a complexity of things that make that. If we say, what are our cultural memories that we have together? We probably go yesterday or day before yesterday, anniversary of Black Wall Street, right? Tulsa bombing. That's one thing. Then most of these are traumatic things. Black people dying, we're not getting along. These are like our cultural memories. So if you think about a person and you sitting down and you asking them, what are your core memories? And they're all traumatic. That's a very low consciousness, right? So I look at culture as this consciousness, as this complexity in our music, our media, our economics, our spirituality, our fashion, right? All of these things. And we can grade the health of each one to say whether they're healthy or unhealthy, whether they're high or low. And if you focus on attacking each, and I think that's where media plays a part in what they call strategic imagination, right? Futurism. Right? Or reframing what the past was, right? Why was that man over drinking, right? Why did he connect that to himself in the first place? You start reframing, then we start understanding, then we start moving forward. Or futurism, placing us in the future to where we have something to look forward to. So again, I believe that when we're utilizing media, if we're utilizing to circulate the same conversation, then we're adding to the memory of cultural trauma. But if we're utilizing to project aspiration, right now, people are placing themselves into a future that's alternative to the one they live in. They start looking for it. Then they start looking for it. They start seeing it, right? We have a RAS, a reticular activation system. Thing we think about, we find, we expand, we maximize. So we can talk.
Yeah, man. That's why it's healthy to stay positive, man. don't be pessimistic. You know what I'm saying? Stay positive. Find the light and shit, and always keep that high energy, because that does translate to your life for real. This was definitely a decent conversation right here. I like the points that bro was making for sure. Joy Taylor, Too Personal show. Y'all check it out. If y'all want to see the whole thing, y'all go over to her page, the Too Personal show. But Raw Reality Mindset, Juan Ramon, we out. Gang!
Yeah, you the real, but it's like you can't take the real of me. Don't bring them bad vibes, don't need you killing my energy. Can't fuck with you if you a fuck nigga, ain't feeling me. She try to ride a nigga way to the feel agree. Can't trust her soul, no, I can't fuck with none of my